Some people think biblical fasting is just a gospel weight loss trend, like a diet with prayer. But those who dive into true Christian life quickly see it's not about shedding belly fat. It's about crucifying the flesh. Jesus in the wilderness wasn't chasing ABFs. He was pursuing spiritual alignment with the Father. And Moses, up on Mount Sinai, didn't go up to slim down, but to receive divine direction. When fasting becomes just a gospel summer project, it totally loses its spiritual purpose. Biblical fasting comes from a broken heart seeking intimacy with God and transformation. It's about silencing the world to hear heaven, not impressing the mirror. Christian life isn't fueled by vanity, but by total surrender. The power of fasting lies in what it unlocks spiritually, not in what it shapes externally. Look at Joel 2:12. God doesn't call people to fast to look good, but to rend their hearts. It's about faith and surrender, not counting calories. The spiritual routine of one who fasts with understanding is marked by discipline, prayer, and right heart posture. Those who fast without that awareness are just hungry. But those who fast with purpose experience spiritual breakthroughs words can't convey. Prayer and fasting go hand in hand, as Daniel did, because fasting without prayer is just a gospel food strike. And let's be real, no one wins spiritual battles without spiritual weapons. Those seeking spiritual strength must stop treating fasting as an aesthetic ritual and start seeing it as a warfare tool. Purposeful fasting transforms atmospheres, renews the mind, and realigns the soul with heaven. So before thinking about how many pounds you want to lose, consider how much spiritual weight needs lifting from your life. Have you ever reflected that maybe your fast needs a new focus? A focus akin to Esther fasting for her people, or Daniel seeking revelation. Your spiritual rhythm needs recalibrating. Many are fasting, right nutrition-wise, but wrong spiritually. Speaking of that, have you understood the true purpose behind your fast? Fasting just because everyone else did it or because it looked cool, one tea lead anywhere. Biblical fasting always had a clear purpose, a reason that touches the heart. Daniel fasted to gain understanding, to grasp important revelations. And Esther, with fasting and prayer, sought protection for her people. Without a defined purpose, fasting becomes merely hunger without true connection to God. When a Christian defines the spiritual purpose of fasting, the spiritual discipline gains strength and meaning. It's not just silencing the body, but silencing the whole world to hear the Father's voice. It's an invitation to advance spiritually and break through daily spiritual battle barriers. A clear purpose turns fasting into a spiritual routine that yields real, lasting fruit, never just a passing event. It's crucial for each one to reflect. Why am I fasting today? Maybe it's for inner transformation, spiritual fortitude, or even to align the heart posture with God. Purposeful fasting makes room for intimacy with God. No food can provide. If you haven't chosen your purpose, start small, maybe seeking greater faith and surrender. A simple spiritual breakthrough that already makes a huge difference. Practically speaking, to define your purpose, a good tip is to pray before you begin and write down why you're fasting. This helps maintain focus and strengthens the spiritual discipline. Some fasts may be for prayer and healing, others for direction, or even to silence the world and sense spiritual rhythm. The secret lies in being intentional, not automatic. And the truth is, fasting without purpose opens the door to distractions and even giving up. So whenever the urge to quit arises, remember that initial motivation you wrote down. That keeps faith and heart posture firm. Speaking of posture, have you thought about yours? Because fasting, when done with purpose, goes far beyond the body. It touches the soul. But that's a matter for the next step. Fasting without prayer is like a weapon. Without ammunition, it seems powerful, but lacks real force. In the Bible, Daniel combined fasting and prayer, and this union triggered angelic answers that changed his life and mission. Prayer gives fasting a voice, turning spiritual discipline into a spiritual battle where the Christian gains strength to resist temptation and deepen their relationship with God. Imagine fasting without talking to God, without opening your heart or asking for guidance. Fasting may remove physical sustenance, but without prayer, the heart remains empty, lacking power and the spiritual strength that only God can provide. That's why every spiritual fasting routine needs moments of sincere conversation with the Father, where faith and surrender meet and create real inner transformation. Practicing fasting and prayer together brings perfect harmony for those wanting to crucify the flesh and grow in Christian life. This union helps silence the world and hear God's voice, strengthening the spirit for daily battles. A practical tip is to set aside times to pray in silence during the fast and even write your prayers in a spiritual journal. It's not uncommon to feel spiritual resistance rise when fasting, but it's precisely then that prayer holds the believer, giving breath to stay steadfast. Spiritual discipline paired with prayer becomes a spiritual fortress, capable of turning crises into surprising spiritual breakthroughs. The secret is not neglecting prayer, because fasting's power is born from constant communion with God. So next time you decide to fast, prepare your heart to pray along aloud mentally, even with tears. Fasting with prayer is the formula for a correct and effective fast, producing fruit in your intimacy with God. And speaking of intimacy, the next point will deepen this sacred connection that fasting provides. Biblical fasting isn't just abstaining from food. It's a mirror that reveals what's in the heart. When hunger strikes, emotions, irritability, anxiety, even persistent fleshly desires, that's where spiritual discipline acts as training, strengthening spiritual resistance and helping crucify the flesh. No running away from challenges. It's time to face the spiritual battle head on. Often, fasting exposes weaknesses the Christian tries to hide, like pride and impatience. The tip is to use these moments to ask God for help, humble yourself, and seek the Holy Spirit. When this heart posture happens, fasting becomes more than physical. It becomes true inner transformation, feeding faith and strengthening Christian life. For example, someone might notice that while fasting, they become more irritable with family or at work. That signals fasting is working on the inner self, revealing where the flesh still rules. At that moment, it's essential to pray for patience and love to resist daily temptations. This daily exercise helps build a spiritual routine that boosts spiritual advancement. It's not uncommon for many to quit fasting due to emotional discomfort, but the secret of correct fasting is learning to control mind and emotions, aligning spirit with God. As James 4:28 says, "Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you." Fasting is a powerful bridge to that deep intimacy, one that goes beyond the body and reaches the spirit. So when you feel like quitting, remember, this test of attitude is training to strengthen faith and create a heart posture that stands firm. The spiritual battle of fasting isn't just for now, but for your entire Christian life. And, of course, all this brings us to consider how fasting should be lived with humility and discretion, a topic we'll explore next. Jesus was very clear in Matthew 6:16-18, "When you fast, don't wear a sad face or go around telling everyone." True fasting doesn't seek spiritual applause or likes. It's a private moment between you and God, an intimate offering only heaven needs to see. The more silent your sacrifice, the louder it echoes on God's throne. Humility is the key. Fasting isn't a bargaining chip. It's not spiritual blackmail or a way to manipulate God. It's submission. It's saying, "Lord, I depend on you more than on bread." That kind of posture pleases the Father and activates promises that are only released to those who truly humble themselves before Him. Whoever fasts with pride fasts in vain. So, guard your heart while fasting. Don't criticize those who don't fast. Don't think you're better. Don't expect spiritual trophies. Do everything like someone washing feet in silence, like Jesus taught through His life. Fasting done with humility shapes your character, breaks pride, and strengthens the spirit. And the more discreet it is, the more powerful it becomes in the spiritual realm. If you understood that truth, then you're ready to level up. And in the next topic, we're going to see how fasting can be a powerful key to breaking spiritual chains and destroying strongholds that are holding your life back. Stick with me, because this journey is just beginning. There are battles that prayer alone won't fix. There are walls that only fall when you combine prayer with fasting. In Mark 9:29, Jesus said, "This kind can come out only by prayer and fasting." In other words, there are demons, addictions, oppression, anxiety that will only back off when you truly consecrate yourself. Fasting activates a spiritual authority that's been sleeping inside you. While you fast, heaven starts moving. The spiritual realm feels the impact of your sacrifice. Invisible chains start breaking. Doors that have been locked for years begin to creak. Fasting is like a hammer in God's hands, smashing chains you didn't even know were holding you. It's root-level deliverance, not just surface healing. Some people are stuck in cycles, toxic relationships, destructive thoughts, and can't break free. But when they choose to fast with purpose, it's like scales fall from their eyes. Fasting brings clarity, strength, discernment, and deliverance. It aligns your spirit with God as spirit and breaks what has been in for a long time. But remember, it's not just about skipping meals. It's about seeking God's presence with intensity while you fast. It's declaring war against everything that's been holding you back. It's giving up physical comfort to experience a spiritual miracle. Those who fast with faith and focus will see strongholds falling and doors opening. The impossible starts becoming possible. Now that you've understood this power, there's no reason to keep living chained. In the next topic, we're going to talk about how fasting can activate God's promises that have been dormant in your life. Hold on tight, because what's coming is even stronger. There are promises God has already released, but they haven't been fulfilled yet, because something is stuck in the spiritual realm. Sometimes it's distraction, sometimes inner battles, other times it's just waiting for the right moment. But fasting has the power to unlock what was stuck. It speeds up processes and activates what seemed forgotten. When you fast, you're saying, "God, I want more. I'm willing to let go of myself to live your purpose." And that surrender touches God's heart. Remember Daniel? He fasted, and the angel could only win the spiritual battle and deliver the answer, because Daniel persevered. Some blessings only arrive when you take a stand with faith. Fasting connects you deeply with heaven. It's like the sound of your faith gets amplified in the spiritual world. What was delayed starts to move. God honors sacrifice. He sees your thirst, your effort, your hunger to break through. And when he sees truth in your heart, he starts releasing what was blocked. It's not that God forgot about you, it's that some promises require spiritual maturity to be fulfilled. And fasting matures you, shapes you, aligns you with heaven. Maybe you weren't ready yet, but fasting prepares you. And then, the promise finds fertile ground to grow. So if there's something God promised you and it hasn't happened yet, maybe it's time to fast. Heaven still remembers what was promised to you. In the next topic, we go on to talk about how fasting draws you closer to God's voice and clarifies the paths you should follow. Come with me, there's still deep revelation ahead. There are moments when we're so surrounded by noise we can barely hear God. It's opinions, fears, social media, distractions, and inner chaos. But when you fast, the soul's silence begins to rise. And it's in that silence that the Holy Spirit whispers that God speaks clearly. Fasting removes the noise and reveals the direction. The Bible shows that men and women heard God clearly after times of fasting. Moses on the mountain, Jesus in the wilderness, Paul before major decisions. Fasting cleanses the soul and sharpens your spiritual antenna. It pulls you out of the flesh and tunes you into heaven. And when that happens, confusion disappears. How many times have you prayed and thought God was silent? Maybe he was speaking, but the noise inside you was the problem. Fasting comes in like an internal cleaning, breaking the flesh, silencing the ego, and calming the heart. That's when discernment grows. You start noticing signs, dreams, confirmations. God's voice isn't always a thunder. Sometimes it's a whisper in the spirit, a holy discomfort, a sudden peace, a glowing idea. But only those who are sensitive hear it, and fasting is the key to that sensitivity. It puts you in a place of listening, where God can guide every step with clarity and love. If you've been feeling confused, directionless, not knowing what path to take, fasting might be the beginning of the clarity you need. In the next topic, we're going to talk about how fasting strengthens you against temptation and raises your spiritual authority. Don't go anywhere, what's coming next is a victory key. Have you noticed how temptations feel stronger when we're spiritually weak? That's the gap the enemy uses. But when you fast, your spirit starts taking control over your flesh. Those desires that used to rule, you lose power. Fasting is like spiritual training that makes you more resistant. Jesus gave us the greatest example. Before starting his ministry, he fasted for 40 days. And even physically weak, he was spiritually strong enough to overcome the devil. Fasting prepares your mind and heart to say no to sin. It gives you clarity, self-control, and spiritual awareness to spot traps. How many times do we fall into the same temptations because we feed the body too much and the spirit too little? Fasting changes that balance. You start enjoying the things of God, and what used to tempt you loses its shine. It's a trade. You give up the temporary to live the eternal. And that's freeing. Some people have been fighting the same sin for years, but never really tried fasting. Because fasting breaks invisible chains. It aligns your desires with God's desires. It's not magic, it's spiritual discipline that bears fruit. When you fast, you don't just resist evil, you start hating it. That's deliverance. In the next and final topic, we're going to talk about how fasting activates God's supernatural in your life. If you've felt God speaking to you so far, what's coming will impact you even more. Stay with me until the end. The revelation is strong. When you fast with purpose, heaven moves. Miracles that were stuck start to be released. Doors that seemed locked begin to open. Because fasting doesn't just change you, it attracts God's move. It's like your sacrifice releases a spiritual key that activates promises. In the Bible, many miracles happened after times of fasting. Esther fasted before facing the king and saved her people. Daniel fasted and received deep revelations. Jesus fasted and launched his ministry in power. Fasting opens a direct channel with heaven. God honors those who consecrate themselves. Many answers you waiting for guarantee. A matter of time, a matter of position. God is ready to act, but he's waiting for your total surrender. When you fast, you say through your actions, God, I depend only on you. And that moves the Father's heart. The supernatural comes when the natural surrenders. Do you want healing, deliverance, restoration? Fast with faith. Seek his presence with all your heart. Don't fast just to fast, seeking direction, breakthrough, intimacy. The Holy Spirit starts operating in ways you can't imagine. The invisible begins to manifest in your reality. And that's when you understand. Fasting isn't a burden, it's a privilege. It's the password to the supernatural. It's not about religiosity, it's about relationship. The more you empty yourself, the more room God has to move. And when he moves, nothing stays the same. Everything changes. Because where God touches, the impossible becomes testimony. If you've made it this far, it's because something lit up in your heart. Maybe God is calling you to a new season of consecration. Maybe He wants to reveal things that can only be accessed in the secret place, through fasting, through surrender. Nothing we talked about here is theory, it's real life. It's true transformation. And that transformation can start today, right where you are. Don't wait for the perfect moment to seek more of God. Start now, even with small decisions. Heaven moves when you choose to move. The change you've been looking for may be on the other side of your sacrifice. Fasting might be the bridge between your now and what God has prepared for you. Remember, God doesn't reject a broken heart. He doesn't ignore a thirsty soul. And when you fast, it's not you reaching for heaven, it's heaven coming down to you. It's intimacy. It's renewal. It's a miracle. So if this message touched you, share it. Someone out there might be needing exactly this. Drop in the comments. Have you ever had a powerful experience with fasting? What was it like? This helps others and strengthens our community. And if you feel God spoke to you today, type Amen in the comments. It's simple but powerful. And if you enjoy this kind of deep content, get ready, because the next video will impact you even more. We'll be talking about the sad truth about lukewarm Christians. They re-inside the church, but far from God. Subscribe, hit the bell, and come dive deeper with us into the truth that sets us free.